Alright, so now we're ready to go over resizing images. And resizing an image in Photoshop, not difficult at all. The important thing is when you're resizing your images that you want to make sure that it's sized correctly for what it's going to be used for. Whether you're going to print it, use it for the web, email it, whatever. There are different processes and settings for the sizes of your images for each of those different applications. And the challenging thing can be knowing how to do the resizing of your image without losing quality. When you're changing the sizing of your image, that's called changing the resolution of your image. And that's one of the most confusing things that people sometimes deal with in Photoshop. So, how do you go about changing the resolution? What's the minimum resolution you need to print a good looking photo, etc.? Now, the smallest element of a raster image or a pixel based image is a pixel. And multiple pixels placed together create your image. Now, pixels don't have a set size. This is where resolution comes into play. Resolution is the measurement that determines how many pixels get packed into a given space, which in turn controls how big or small the pixels are. So resolution is essentially pixel size. Now, here in the United States, that's pixels per inch. In other countries, that's measured by centimeters, pixels per centimeter. But for any of the videos and for this class, we will be dealing with pixels per inch. Now, in addition, resolution is sometimes referred to as DPI. So if you hear me say a DPI of 300, that means you're setting the resolution to 300 for your image. Now, one thing that is a general rule of thumb is it's a lot easier to keep quality when you're making a large image a smaller resolution than to take a small image with a very low DPI and make it larger. So when you increase the image resolution from say 72 to 300, this makes your pixels smaller because they're packed together more tightly. You have more pixels within that same space, which makes them smaller and gives you more detail. And that's called having a high resolution. Now let's say you keep that same size image and you want to lower your resolution. Say you had it at 300 ppi or pixels per inch and you want to lower it to 72 pixels per inch. Essentially, you're losing pixels. They're getting larger. You're going from 300 to 72, and on a computer screen, you're not going to see that much of a difference. However, if you zoom in, it will become readily apparent. Now, printers have the capability in their printing to produce much larger resolution images than what you can see on a TV or a computer screen. So let's open up an image and take a look at some of these things. If you would please open up In the Wind JPEG, and you're just going to work along, and let's go to Image, Image Size. And let's look at the image size dialog box. First of all, you'll see the preview window over to the left where you can zoom in. I'm at 100% right now, so I can zoom out or in using the plus and minus here. Over to the right, you'll see what my image size is, the dimensions, and I can set that dimensions as to whether I want to see it in percentage, pixels, inches, centimeters, etc. I'm going to leave that set to pixels. I can see the dimensions of my image, the size of my image in inches, and again I can change that if I want to pixels, percent, etc. I am going to leave that set at inches. I can see what the current resolution of this image is, which is 240 pixels per inch, or PPI. Okay, so let's talk about resampling. The dialog box's resample checkbox is your key to changing the resolution without changing your image quality. And so you can see there's a drop-down box out here beside it. And essentially, resampling means Photoshop is responding to your size change request by either adding or subtracting pixels. So you're losing pixels or adding pixels through the resampling process. And essentially, Photoshop's guessing. And this guesswork leads to the degradation of your image. So when you go to resize your image, whether it's by lowering or increasing the resolution, it's important that you turn off the resample checkbox to preserve the integrity of your image. And what this does is it locks the pixel dimensions. So whether you're printing the image or putting it out on the web, turning this setting off lets you adjust the resolution without adjusting your image quality, because you're just changing the pixel size, not the number of pixels. It's a little bit confusing, I know. I would strongly encourage you to read in the book more about it. And on page 257, you can see the individual explanations of each of the things in the resampling drop-down menu. All right, I'm going to cancel out of that. Once again, that was image and image size to bring up the image size window, which allows me to adjust the resolution of my image. Now, whenever you're going to print an image, the resolution of the image is determined by the printer. Different printers print at different resolutions. So it's important to know, if you're sending your prints out somewhere to get printed, or dealing with a printer, or printing on your own using an inkjet printer, it's important that you know the printer's LPI, which is lines per inch in America, or lines per centimeter in Europe. And so if you know your printer's LPI or LPC, lines per inch or lines per centimeter, what you can do is you can go to your image size dialog box. And in your image size dialog box, you would select auto resolution. And that pops up your printing guidelines. And so then you can set up your lines per inch resolution. You can also select draft quality, good quality, or best quality. Draft gives you a resolution of 72 ppi. Good multiplies the lines per inch by 1.5, and best multiplies it by 2. Once again, you get your LPI from your printer. And so to access this was the auto resolution under Fit 2. Generally, you're going to leave it set on original size, however. Cancel out of that. And you can read more about LPI on the bottom of page 259. On page 260, there's a chart that can help you with knowing basic resolutions and what type of printing or how the image is going to be used and what your settings should be.